the net that came from below. Fishermen see things the rest of the world never hears about. Lights under the ocean, shadows that circle the boat with no sound, nets that come up torn when nothing large should be nearby. But what happened on the trawler Marlin 6 was different. It wasn't the sea acting strange. It was something inside it. The Marlin 6 left the harbor at midnight, cutting through black, oily water. Captain Ron, a man who had fished these waters for 30 years, kept rubbing the back of his neck, uneasy. "Storm's not on the radar," he muttered, "but something's off tonight." Around 3 a.m., the ocean fell silent. No waves, no wind, just a perfect, unnatural stillness. The sonar pinged, a massive shape rising beneath the boat. Ron's crew dropped the nets. They sank quickly, then jerked to a stop. "Feels like we hooked a submarine," one sailor joked. But then the net started moving, not being pulled down, but being pushed up. When they hauled it aboard, the deck fell silent. Inside the net was a huge mass. Not fish, not debris. A tangled mess of fishing nets, layers of them, knotted, twisted, and pulsing like they were breathing. As they approached, one of the nets shifted. A long, rope-like tendril slid out between the knots. Then another. The mass twitched. As if waking up, a sailor stepped back. "What the hell is that? A whale caught in nets?" "No," Ron whispered. "No creature moves like that." The nets shuddered. Then something pushed from beneath, stretching the ropes outward. A silhouette. Humanoid. Too tall. Too thin. Its hand, if it was a hand, pressed through the netting, fingers far too long, bones bending unnaturally. Suddenly the mass lurched, slamming itself against the deck. The sailors ran, but the net creature began to spread. Ropes slithering across the deck like tentacles, reaching toward anything warm. "Cut it loose!" Ron shouted. 2 crew members grabbed axes and hacked at the nets. As they chopped, the ropes writhed, curling around their boots. One sailor screamed as the net tightened around his ankle, pulling him toward the wriggling mass. Ron dove forward, slicing the rope with his knife. They hacked faster. Below the ship, the water churned, a vortex forming, pulling downward, like the creature wanted to drag the entire trawler into the deep. With a final swing, they cut the last rope. The entire living net slid off the deck, but instead of sinking, it hovered, bobbing, staring at them without eyes. Then, in a heartbeat, it dove straight down, vanishing into the blackness. The sea returned to perfect calm, and the Marlin 6 sped back to harbor without another word. Ron never sailed at night again. Fishermen still swear that, on windless nights, you can see something floating just beneath the surface, a shape of knotted ropes, waiting for another boat to come close. The lighthouse that answered back. Off the rocky coast of Black Ridge lies Lumen Tower, a lighthouse abandoned in 1974 after its keeper vanished. Most sailors avoid it. But one night, a small crew aboard the Sea Finch was forced into its waters by a sudden storm. A storm that wasn't in the forecast. The ocean, however, had different plans. As lightning cracked across the sky, the Sea Finch struggled against towering waves. Their radios went dead. GPS flickered. Then a voice broke through the static. "Finch, turn port. The light will guide you." A light? But Lumen Tower had been dark for nearly 50 years. Yet, through the rain, a cold blue beam swept across the water. Steady, unnatural, and aimed directly at them. The captain hesitated. "That tower's dead," he whispered. "No power, no keeper, no reason it should be lit." But the voice came again. "Come to shore. Hurry." And the sea finch obeyed. They docked at the base of the lighthouse. The blue beam blinked off instantly, plunging everything into darkness. Captain Ellis grabbed a lantern and motioned for two sailors to follow. The heavy door creaked open on its own. Inside, the spiral staircase glistened with seawater, as if something had crawled up from the ocean and shaken itself off. Halfway up, their lantern flickered. A silhouette appeared above them. A man in an old lighthouse keeper's coat. "Sir," Ellis called, "did you send the signal?" No answer. The keeper turned and ascended silently, footsteps echoing unnaturally slow, like they were delayed. The sailors followed, but the higher they climbed, the colder the air became, their breaths fogging in dense, icy vapor. When they reached the lantern room, they froze. The keeper stood facing the window, staring out at the storm. The sea finch was now drifting farther from shore, its lights flickering, as if something was pulling it back toward the deeper ocean. Ellis stepped forward carefully. "Sir, we need to get back to our crew." Slowly, the keeper turned. His eyes were hollow, not empty, just wrong, filled with swirling water, like mini whirlpools spinning inside his sockets. In a voice layered with echoes, he whispered, "No one leaves when the tide calls them." The glass of the lantern room cracked, thin lines spiderwebbing across it. Outside, the waves rose higher, reaching toward the tower. Ellis backed away. "I think it's time we go." But the keeper lifted his hand, and every window in the lighthouse burst open, letting in a surge of freezing seawater. The sailors sprinted down the stairs as the tower shook violently. Seawater slammed against the walls, chasing them downward like a living thing. The keeper's voice echoed from above. "The tide always returns what it takes." They burst through the front door, just as a massive wave crashed over the rocks. Their boat lights flickered in the distance. The sea finch was drifting farther away, pulled by an unseen current. Ellis and his men leaped from the rocks, swimming for their lives. Behind them, Lumen Tower glowed with that same unnatural blue light, as if the entire lighthouse had awakened. The tide tried to drag them under, cold hands curling around their ankles. But a surge of lightning illuminated the sky, and the current shifted. The sailors reached the boat and scrambled aboard. When they looked back, the lighthouse was dark again, silent, unmoving, like nothing had ever happened. But to this day, sailors swear that sometimes, during storms, a cold blue light sweeps across the waves, and a voice whispers through the fog, "Come to shore."